Hello and welcome to the Pop Council Podcast. This is the show where we cover everything in pop culture. Each week on this show, we discuss topics in the geek world, as well as various fandoms such as Disney, Marvel, DC, Star Wars, theme parks, and everything in between. I'm Jami, Philbrick, editor-in-chief of Movie Phone and a member of the Hollywood Critics Association. We have a great show for you today. We will be discussing the Peacemaker finale, the Justice League cameo, the Wonder Twins movie for HBO Max, 50 Cent producing DC's Xero, Star Trek 4 with the 2009 cast, Stranger Things 4 posters, as well as the series ending in season 5 and some recently announced video game adaptations and more. But it would not be a Pop Council if I wasn't joined by my lovely co-host, Wendy Lee. How you doing, Wendy?
I'm doing so great. How was your weekend?
Pretty good. I caught up on a couple of movies I needed to see and just hung out with the dog, went to the park, drank some coffee, did my regular weekend stuff. How about you?
That sounds relaxing. Let's see. Just, some editing for the Movie Couple channel. Played a couple of TRPG games over the weekend with some friends. That's live streamed. And now we're back, and it's Monday.
Back into the week. And happy President's Day to all of you.
Yes.
I hope you're out there celebrating presidents. I don't really know what we do on this day. I don't really know what this day is for, but I guess we celebrate presidencies. I don't know, but it's a nice day off nonetheless. And because it's a day off for the working world, we are very excited that we are able to welcome back my former Hawkeye After Show co-host, Mark Pacis. Mark!
Hey, what's up, guys? Happy to
Mark.
be here. And that's why I'm here today, because it is a day off.
I'm sure
working.
I'm sure you missed getting up at 3 a.m. with me to review Hawkeye.
I mean, I stay up anyways. I did it for Book of Boba Fett, so
there you go.
I'm a night owl, let's just say it, but I'm not a morning person, so I'm grateful that this show is at 11 o'clock right now. So.
Well, we're grateful that you can get up by 11 to join us. So good stuff.
Of course, for you guys, always.
Man, we love having you. We got a bunch of things to talk about today, so we'll just jump right into it. But of course, the finale of James Gunn's Peacemaker series on HBO Max, of course, a spinoff of his The Suicide Squad film, which was one of my favorite of last year. And so the series has been really great. I've enjoyed it. And John Cena is doing a great job as the Peacemaker. But I think, there were a few cameos this week. And I think Viola Davis made a little cameo again as her character, Amanda Waller, which she did in the pilot episode. So I don't think that was a huge shocker. But a lot of people were very surprised to see Zack Snyder's Justice League, or part of Zack Snyder's Justice League, appear in the end of the series. So Peacemaker and his team are sort of undermanned, taking on the Butterflies, the big villains at the end. They call Amanda Waller and say, "Bring in the Justice League. We need them." And then, of course, the Justice League shows up as soon as the bad guys have been defeated and everything's fine. Peacemaker gives them a nice FU and tells them to go away. We've got another shot here. You can see a little bit more. Of course, Wonder Woman and Superman were in shadows, so we didn't really get to see them. They were stand-ins playing those characters. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. We did get Jason Momoa as well as Ezra Miller in nice cameos. They even had a little dialogue with each other, although if you follow James Gunn on Twitter, you realize that was completely shot separately. And in fact, very interestingly, Guardians of Galaxy 3, Marvel actually filmed the Flash sequence. Ezra came to the set of Guardians 3, so Marvel filmed that shot.
Wait,
for
what?
DC. Yeah,
Yep.
right? Yep, Marvel shot that scene for DC. They shot Ezra Miller on the set of Guardians 3.
Who said we can't get along? Who said?
Yeah, right.
That's what I'm saying.
For the love of movies.
It's also interesting. I want to mention this because a lot of, obviously, the internet kind of went nuts when the finale debuted, and we saw this. and of course, everyone's like, where's Batman? Where's Cyborg? Why no Batman, no Cyborg? James Gunn said on Twitter yesterday that he actually shot the scene with Batman, with a silhouetted Ben Affleck's Batman. And I believe the stand-in has also shown some photos on Instagram or Twitter of him in the bat suit. So James Gunn wouldn't really explain why Batman and Cyborg were taken out, but it was a DC decision, not a him decision. And so I think we can speculate on some of those reasons. We're not quite sure who the Batman is going to be after the Flash movie, Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck. So I think that's probably wanting to keep that a little close to the vest. And then the Cyborg situation, that if you've been following the Justice League thing for the last couple of years, we don't have to go into that, but what's going on.
That's a whole separate thing.
Yeah, they weren't bringing Ray Fisher back for that. So it's interesting. And then I also think it's interesting that, listen, obviously Aquaman and Flash have movies coming out this year, so those would be the characters you would want to see. We don't really know what's going on with Superman, but I thought it was interesting that Superman is still included in this shot and included in what looks to be a Henry Cavill version of Superman. Also interesting, Gal Gadot is a big star. She may not want to come back to just film this little cameo, but we do know that she and Patty Jenkins were a little unhappy with the way Wonder Woman 1984 came out during the pandemic. So am I reading too much into this, that Aquaman and Flash are the face of DC movies moving forward and not Superman and not Batman and maybe not even Wonder Woman? Wendy, what are your thoughts?
I honestly just thought that they had lines because they have movies that are coming up. So it's to get fans who maybe are a little bit newer to the DCEU to be like, oh wait, Jason Momoa, he's Aquaman, he's got a movie coming out, Flash too, and look at their relationships. So and I honestly really thought that was why I had no other feelings towards Henry Cavill, or I guess his version of Superman, not having a line or showing the face, as well as Wonder Woman. And I also thought who knows what she's doing these days, but I know she's super busy. And again, to come in for a cameo like this when she doesn't have a third Wonder Woman film, I think that they're working on it, but I don't believe it's been announced yet. So I think that's why they kept the spotlight on the Flash and Aquaman.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Yeah. I do, sorry to correct you, but it actually was announced, Wonder Woman 3. It was one of those days after.
It was announced, but they haven't right. Yeah, what I meant was that it's literally not coming out right now.
Correct.
But the two, so I was thinking they're for current marketing.
But again, there's a good feeling that was a save face. We're definitely doing a 3 in the aftermath of 2 not doing well on HBO Max, so I don't think it's a lock necessarily as much as we think it is that Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot are definitely coming back for a third one, although you would think they'd want to get that done. Mark, what were your thoughts on the ending of Peacemaker and this pseudo just sort of Justice League cameo?
You mean 2 out of the 5? Well, 6, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was great. It was totally unexpected to see, Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller back, because I was watching it and I just saw the silhouettes and, I thought, oh, of course they're not gonna, show up. But then once Jason Momoa showed up and dropping an F-bomb, I was like, oh my God, that is awesome. And then, they kind of panned and showed Ezra Miller, and I'm like, oh my God, they got Ezra Miller too. And I think the shock of it just kind of, maybe not think that, oh, that's right, they have 2 movies coming out. I just thought it was awesome. As a fan of the show, wow, they actually got these guys to come in for a cameo. And yeah, it was great. And, it's really not, that far-fetched to say oh, Superman doesn't have a movie coming out. Wonder Woman 3 was announced, but it's not even close to being in production yet. So, that And not to mention, like, the whole Batman situation, there's a new Batman movie coming out in, like, 2 weeks, so I guess DC doesn't wanna, like, maybe confuse viewers, like, because we haven't been introduced to the DC multiverse yet, because that's happening in The Flash, so maybe they didn't wanna, like, confuse viewers like, "Oh, here's Batman, Batfleck," but then we also have Robert Pattinson, Batman, coming out in 2 weeks. So and then the whole Ray Fisher situation is its own thing. So it's really, now that hearing you guys talk about it, it's really not that surprising that they only showed Aquaman and Flash, but hearing James Gunn's dialogue, come out of the mouths of those two guys, those are the two guys that you want to say those lines, because they are really funny. So yeah, it's surprising, and I'm glad it happened, because that was a great ending to the finale, because that show is really great.
Yeah, it was great. I liked what you said. It was great seeing Momoa and Miller saying James Gunn's words. And it should be no surprise. Obviously, they've got movies coming out this year. They would be the two characters, we'd want to focus on. I think you're probably right. I hadn't even thought about the Robert Pattinson Batman element. And we haven't really been able to establish yet that that's Earth 1 or Earth 2 kind of thing,
Yeah.
And so you're right, that, and then also obviously not having yet the Flash movie to really reestablish Michael Keaton as the Batman moving forward. We haven't had that yet. So showing any Batman, especially a Batman that maybe looked like an Affleck Batman, could be more than a little bit confusing for everyone but the three of us, right? So,
Yeah.
and then the Superman, I think it's interesting that he still sort of looks like the Zack Snyder, Henry Cavill Superman. I think they're kind of playing that close to the vest. They've got some options there if they want to continue down that route or go another route. The Wonder Woman thing, she's the biggest star in the DCU at this point until we get The Rock's Black Adam. So it's really interesting, though, the direction the DC universe is taking. I remember maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I don't know if you guys watched those like DC animated direct to DVD movies. They're really good. They've done some really great ones. But I remember they did a really amazing solo Wonder Woman animated film. I mean, this is maybe almost 20 years ago now. That was critically, like, everyone just thought it was like really great animation. They did a great job with it, but it didn't sell really well. And the reason was always that DC Animation was giving why they couldn't do a Wonder Woman 2 was because the only DC animated films that sold were films that either had Batman or Superman in them. And what's really interesting to me is we're now in a cinematic world in live action where Batman and Superman don't sell. Aquaman, Wonder Woman, maybe Flash, Black Adam, presumably. Those are now becoming the biggest stars. They're becoming the biggest characters of the DCU. And it's a really weird thing for longtime DC comic book fans to see that people don't want Superman and Batman anymore. Wendy, just real quick on that. What do you think that's all about? The lack of interest in Superman and Batman. And of course, I say that on the verge of a new Batman movie coming out, but
that we're so hyped for.
Right, that is probably going to be. But in the DCEU, not in the multiverse, but in the primary universe, why are Batman and Superman taking a back seat to these other characters?
I think it's not so much as them taking a back seat or like a decline in interest. I think that they have just been very much on the forefront of that market. If you ask a lot of people within the DC, like, what was the very first DC superhero you encountered? For me personally, it was actually Superman before Batman. But then once I was introduced to Batman, I like Batman more because I like dark things, and my soul is dark, so it kind of resonated with me, and I was like, Superman's great, but like, look at Batman, that's cool. But I think now, with the representation, with diversity, with all these stories that all these characters have to tell, I I think that's what's gauging a lot of people's interest. Like, we've seen the Batman story, right? Like, I really don't know if in this upcoming Matt Reeves Batman, if we're going to see what happens to the Wayne family, but without going into it, without even being a Batman super fan, you kind of already know that part of the history. So I think for the most general audience, Batman, Superman, they've always been there. And then they're not even new superheroes, you know, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash. They're not Black Adam. They're not new. They've been around, but just because those two, or even the trio, the aforementioned, have been so much in the forefront that now there's finally interest because we're finally being told their stories, right? So, and it's also for the kids who see maybe a superhero that they can see themselves as, and they go, that's cool. And I think that's kind of why, as you mentioned, Jami, maybe Batman and Superman are taking like a backseat. And I want to use that lightly because I don't think the interest in those two superheroes are not waning, you know. But I think it's about time for the other superheroes to kind of step up to the plate and get the spotlight.
I 100% agree with that, and quite frankly, don't know why they didn't try doing, you know, a Booster Gold movie 15 years ago. Or
are we getting that still? Getting Blue Beetle?
I think so. Yeah,
He might get shoved into Blue Beetle, but yeah, you know, but just to name, you know, Firestorm, Green Arrow, whatever, you know, just to name, you know, Adam Strange, Jonah Hex. I mean, I know they did that, it didn't work out, but
they'll do it again, Jami.
Yeah, I worked on the last one. I wouldn't want to work on it again. But I do agree with you that I think like Superman and Batman have sort of sucked a lot of the oxygen out, right? And so it didn't allow for these other characters to get a chance. You know, it's sort of like the kind of what happened with Marvel. We wouldn't have Iron Man, Thor, and the entire Marvel universe if they had the rights to Spider-Man and X-Men in the beginning. We would only have Spider-Man and X-Men.
Yeah.
So in some sense, hopefully we'll get, but, and then real quick, cause you said this, that's my biggest fear with the Matt Reeves Batman movie is that it's going to be Christopher Nolan's all over again. It's going to be the same aesthetic Batman. I know it's year 2, but year 2 and year 1, are very close together, right? So I don't, you know, I haven't seen it yet, so I'm holding out hope that it kind of exceeds my expectations. But it seems to me, without seeing it, like we're going down the same road again.
Yeah. Do you feel that for, you know, since you mentioned that the aesthetic of the upcoming Batman is similar to the Nolan Batman, that the people who are going to be like first in line to the theater would be specifically fans of those films? And then as words get out?
I mean, I think you get every Batman fan at the beginning. You know, I think I even someone like me who's a huge Batman fan, and let me be sorry, like I love Matt Reeves. I'm sure I'm going to like the movie. I'm just concerned that it might be similar to what I've seen before. That wouldn't be a terrible thing because it's a lot of things I've seen, unless it's like Batman and Robin. But you know what I mean? Like if it's not sort of Schumacher Batmans, I'd be fine with anything similar to a Burton Batman or a Nolan Batman or even elements of Snyder's Batman. My concern is that it's not taking the opportunity to really delve into the character and do things that we haven't seen before. That being said, even myself, and I think every Batman fan is going to be out to see it as soon as they can. And then that word of mouth that spreads to maybe not the first Batman audience, that's going to be interesting to see what that word of mouth is. Is it, oh my God, this is, is it like Spider-Man No Way Home word of mouth? Or is it like Man of Steel word of mouth, right? Like that's like, yeah, it's pretty good. You should see, or like, oh my God, you have to see this. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. Any last thoughts on the Justice League cameo in Peacemaker, Mark?
Nope. You guys pretty much nailed it on the head, guys.
Then it was fun. It was just fun to see them, all together. I didn't even care that we didn't get all of them. I mean, I cared a little bit, but I think in the moment I was like, oh, this is happening.
No, and just ending on this, I got more of them than I thought I would, right? Like, I didn't
Yes.
think we'd actually see Aquaman and Flash speak. Like, I thought it was
Yes.
just going to be the silhouette in shade, which frankly kind of would have been enough. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think our minds would have been blown with just that. And then we
Yeah.
got this little bit extra from Jason and Ezra.
Actually, you know what? Actually, you know what? Sorry, I'm just surprised that actually Amanda Waller called in the Justice League for them, because I just thought it was just one of those situations.
That's true.
Well,
Where it's
remember,
like,
her
yeah,
daughter was there.
that's true.
Her daughter. So you could look at it as she didn't call in the Justice League to save Chris Smith and Hardcore.
She doesn't care about them.
You could care. You think she called in the Justice League to save John Economist?
No.
She called in the Justice League to save her daughter.
That's true.
You're right.
I mean, that.
Yeah. What a great ending, honestly.
I mean, I really think she called in the Justice League so that we could have a Viola Davis and a Jason Momoa, Ezra Miller and Jason Momoa cameos. I mean, that's why. I mean, you could argue, is it really in her character to want to even save her daughter? I mean, that's an argument. I don't know. But I think it was a plot development, certainly, but I think you could look at it as, for that. Well, a little bit more DC news. Actually, we got a couple more DC stories. Announcement this week that they are in development on a Wonder Twins movie for HBO Max. That this will be written and I think directed. I think this will be the directorial debut for Adam. I'm going to try to say his last name, Sztykiel. He is the writer of Black Adam. So interesting. We see there, this is actually not the Super Friends version, but the DC Comics version when they were sort of incorporated into the comics. And obviously, Zane and Jana. Is it Zane and Jana? Yeah.
Zane and Jana.
Right. Was it?
Let me double check. I had notes, but you know how my notes like.
I know. I'm going off my memory.
Zane and Jana.
Dan and Jana. I'm going off my memory from when I was 10 years old. But of course, they were introduced in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. Super Friends animated cartoon. They were original characters. They're these alien, basically kids. They've got a space monkey as a pet. When they put their fists together, Wonder Twins' powers activate. And of course, Jane can turn into any animal, and Xana's powers are turning into anything based on water, and it's usually like the worst thing. It's like form of a giant space ape and form of an ice pick. Like, I don't know what to do. Form of a bucket of water. She would turn into an eagle. He would turn into a bucket of water, and she would. I don't really know. I hope they upgrade his powers a little bit for the film.
Yeah, it seems interesting when you're considering the type of threats they were fighting off, and that was his power. I'm like, I'm sure it comes in handy, but you got to get real creative with the way you use his power.
Yeah, it comes in handy when you're thirsty. Yeah, when the bird needs to drink. And then they were eventually incorporated into DC Comics. But haven't really had a whole lot to do. There was an interesting adaptation of them on one episode of Smallville, where I thought they did a pretty good job of kind of getting, the idea of those characters and bringing them to modern day. But this is another one of these HBO Max films. We know Batgirl is currently shooting. Blue Beetle is coming down the line. Wendy, what were your thoughts on the Wonder Twins announcement and the direction HBO Max is going with their original DC films?
So very out of the blue for me. Like, I would say this is so unexpected because I haven't heard the words Wonder Twins in years. It's not even something like, as far as character goes, not anything that I follow. So for HBO Max to say, yeah, we are going to, hey, remember them? When they bump fists and they say their phrase, and then they transform into their respective whatever power they want to do, animal and form of water. And now we're going to turn them into an HBO Max movie. I think before seeing what they did with Peacemaker, I'd be like, I don't know about this. But I think, and I know I'm comparing like a TV series to a upcoming film, but just
It's
seeing the
fair,
potential. Yeah. And I feel like, you know, I feel like they really hit the target with Peacemaker, really like nailing that landing for the finale to wrap up the show. So I do have confidence that they will do it well, as considering who's working on it. I just wonder how many people will actually be interested in tuning in. I think that's kind of more of my question to the two of you too. Like, do you think it'll be as popular? Because again, we only have like the old show or the old comics and a couple cameos here and there to um I guess jog people's memory of the Wonder Twins. So
well, there's not a lot to draw from, I think is sort of what you're saying. And you're right. There's not a lot to draw from. And that can be good in a way too, right? So it's
yeah.
kind of like, you know, fresh clay to sort of mold whatever they want out of this. And I think the comparison is because it's HBO Max is fair, even though it's a movie and a TV show. So much of what they were involved in their original conception in the Super Friends cartoon was with the Super Friends, was with the Justice League, right? Like it was always them fixing a mistake they made or trying to kind of help that, or they're causing the mistake that the Justice League has to fix. So I'm not quite sure how you do the story outside of Justice League. And then is it interesting outside of Super Friends? You know, are these characters interesting enough for a full series? I mean, you know, you could do a sort of Roswell type thing where they're aliens and they come here and they have to pose as
Ooh.
teenagers and, you know, and maybe the origin of Gleek. I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts, Mark, on how this might come together?
I mean, I feel like if you are going to introduce these kinds of characters for, you know, TV, movie, or whatever with these kind of powers, there has to be an element of universe integration into it. Maybe a cameo from a certain, you know, not necessarily like Justice League characters, but some sort of like universe synergy in a sense where you're bringing in other characters from other stuff. I mean, that's why we watched, you know, the DC CW shows. That's why we watch Marvel, DC, cinematic universe movies. So if it's its own thing, the movie better be, you know, out of this world. It better
Yeah.
be really funny, you know, have a sense of like, you know, character development, all the stuff that we like in movies. It better be in there because I feel like as an outsider, because I've said this before, I don't really follow DC Comics as much, so my knowledge of the Wonder Twins isn't as high as like other people. So my on the surface knowledge makes me think like, you know, why? You know, why are we getting this when we have other, you know, cooler superheroes in the DC realm that I know of that haven't even seen the light of day yet? So, um, I mean, props to them for, you know, being open enough to bring in other heroes that we haven't seen because I feel like that's, you know, one way to get interest in the DC comics, you know, going is by trying out new stuff. And you said it, Wendy, you know, we need some diversity because we've seen Batman and Superman a lot in these 40 years that they've been
Yes, we have.
in like movies. So it's cool that we're getting something different, but I don't know if Wonder Twins is something that I would like to see unless it's done in a really awesome way, or like I said, there's some universe integration in it.
Well,
Prove
I
me
agree
wrong.
with
Prove me
that.
wrong,
Yeah,
DC.
I agree with that. I think if they take it from in a way they did with Peacemaker, where it's set in this, and I know the DC universe is changing and the multiverse and blah blah blah, but if you set it in a primary DC universe where you could have a cameo like a Momoa, like we
Hmm.
just saw,
Hmm.
now the perfect character would do this, but it's not going to happen now for other reasons we've alluded to, would be to have Cyborg, right? Because Cyborg, if you look at his comic book character, never should have really been a member of the Justice League. He is one of the founding members of the Teen Titans. And as he grew older in the comics, he didn't leave the Teen Titans and graduate and join the Justice League. He eventually joined the Justice League, but that was a retconned kind of thing when they rebooted the 52 in 2011. So Cyborg really in the comics up to there stayed with the Teen Titans as sort of an older member, helping the younger newer Teen Titan members like Blue Beetle, for example. So, and Static Shock was another one. So it would be interesting to see some sort of recognizable DCU mentor to help these kids. But I agree, there's got to be some connection to the greater DC because there's just not enough interest in a one. I mean, there's a reason there was never a Wonder Twin cartoon, right? Like they were part of the Super Friends. They didn't get their own show. So yeah, there needs to be something a little bit more, but they are interesting. I think characters that haven't had enough to do or given enough, it'll be interesting to see what they do with it and what direction these I almost said MCU, these Max movies are going in, especially with Batgirl and Blue Beetle. And I agree, it does seem like diversity is sort of one of at the forefront of all of that. So I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if you see some very interesting casting for these characters as well.
Yeah.
So we've got one more DC story before we move it on to some other exciting news. But this week, a very little known DC comic called Xero, that's spelled with an X, is been announced to be made into a movie. 50 Cent and his team, his production company, are producing that. It's the same production company. It brings us all those Power shows on Stars. And the photo on the far right is comic book writer Christopher Priest. This is based on one of his lesser known DC comics. I have to say, I actually know very little about this character. I vaguely recognize the comic book cover that's been on all of the articles talking about this announcement over the last few days. Seems to be sort of like a CIA operative kind of character. So it's interesting. I love Christopher Priest. It's interesting this is going to be a movie. It was sort of unclear to me in the announcement. It's a movie, but is it a movie for Stars? Is it a movie that's going to be in theaters?
Right.
Going on demand? Like, there's a lot of terms for movies in 2021. So I don't know exactly how wide release this is going to be. But it's, it's interesting that this type of comic book now, I mean, we're just sort of, mining the store for whatever characters we can find. Wendy, what were your thoughts on this? And let me ask you this: does it make you interested in finding the comic book and now reading the comic book, or is there not enough interest, like in this DC character you've never heard of and 50 Cent?
I think the interest there is 50 wanting to produce a DC comic, and because I think that's where a lot of say like the influences will come. Like his fans would be like, oh, they want to support his producing projects, right? So, and for that, I am always interested in when these stars who get into producing, or they have a huge interest in comic books that nobody really knew about, until it is out. And when they highlight a character and it's a lesser known character, like I kind of love that, because this kind of goes back into the conversation that we've had all day so far, this show that was not planned. But, and again, there's no shade to the Holy Trio, the Batman, the Superman, and the Wonder Woman, because I love them. I have so many, outfits with like their logos on them. But I do like seeing some of the lesser known comic book characters getting the spotlight. So I think it's interesting. I think the next time, I haven't gone into a comic book store in a long time. I've been doing digital, but it has piqued my interest in the way where I when I was reading the description, I'm like, well, that's interesting. Wouldn't mind checking out, a couple panels and see how I feel after, you guys ever do that thing? You go into the comic book store and you're like, what's this cover? And you pick it up and you just, you're supposed to buy it, but you're like a long peruse. Like a long peruse. I've done that
yeah,
before.
I've done some long perusing in my day.
They know, they see you.
Oh, of course,
Yeah,
of course.
I think this, if I walked into the comic book store and I would, see this cover on the shelf, I would perhaps give it a long peruse until they yell at me. You got to buy that.
A long peruse. I believe that's an old Willie Nelson song. Mark, what are your thoughts on this?
To what Wendy said, yeah, I like you guys. I know nothing. I mean, I already said this before. I know nothing about DC, but with Zero, I'm like, I never even heard of this guy. Like, at least I've heard of the Wonder Twins, but with this guy, I'm like, I never even heard of him. But then I looked it up, and I think it's an interesting concept of like, an African American guy, kind of like, disguising himself as a Caucasian. But I mean, in these times, that kind of fits with the whole like, what's going on in our society nowadays. So I think it's not that surprising that, we're getting something like this. But I just hope it's on like interesting enough to where we want to see more of it, not just like, we're just going to make a movie and then it's done. Just get it out there, maybe pique the interest of like us, because I'm like one of those people who, if I know nothing about the character, I'm probably not going to go and peruse the comic books, even though like the cover is cool. I will wait until, I see what they're making before I, read up more about it. And if it's good enough, man, I will, like look more into it. But as of right now, I'm just gonna, wait until I see what we get, see what 50 Cent gives us. And, a good way to, peruse comics, Wendy, is to just be friends with the owner. Just chat them up. Just chat up with whoever is behind the register, and if you're cool with them, man, they'll be cool with you, just like perusing. Because I'm friends with a lot of the people who work at the comic book stores, and when I peruse, man, they let me, because they're cool with me and I'm cool with them. So that's one way of like doing it. Don't go to a new comic book store. You gotta establish relationships first in order for you to peruse.
Yeah. I gotta say, like, one of the friendliest comic book store that I have set foot into, like till today, is still House of Secrets in Burbank.
Oh yeah,
like that's probably, I know it's a smaller location. I know like the Golden Apple in LA is much bigger, but like I really, how do I say it? Like I don't feel awkward being in there. Sometimes you walk in and you don't feel wanted, even though you're, giving them business, and you're just kind of like, I don't know if I should be here. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've left comic book stores because of that feeling, but I've never gotten that over at House of Secrets. So
there's another great one. I don't know if they're still there, but in Silver Lake, called Secret Headquarters, and I haven't been there in years, so I don't even know if it's still there. But if it's still there, I guess I would describe it like, imagine a cigar shop for comic books. Like, it's leather chairs. There's no racks. It's like a library, the way the comics are all set up. It's more of a lounge than, there's no toys. It's more of a comic book lounge, and you definitely can peruse. It's on Sunset in Silver Lake. If it's still there, Secret Headquarters.
Nice.
But yeah, I agree.
House of
Secrets,
I know, right?
Fantastic as well. That's a little comic book shop tip for you here in Los Angeles.
There you go.
Moving on to a little bit of exciting news from the Star Trek world. This is something, I know we've been talking about this for the last couple years. Is Noah Hawley going to make a Star Trek movie? Is Quentin Tarantino? Is WandaVision's Matt Shankman? Like, who's going to make this the next Star Trek film? And who's going to be in it? And we got our answer. Chris Pine and the entire 2009 cast, of course, sadly, with the exception of Anton Yelchin, but the rest of the cast will all be reprising their roles for another Star Trek. This will not be the Quentin Tarantino Star Trek. This will not be the Noah Hawley Star Trek. This will be Matt Shankman's Star Trek. He will direct, I believe, based on a script that he wrote, but that may be incorrect. It might be by somebody else. But he is set to direct with the original Chris Pines and the original cast. So I mean, I think this is great news. I don't think we really wanted to, go down the recasting of Captain Kirk and all these iconic characters again. We've grown to really like this cast, as well as this cast has gone to become, I mean, every one of them in their own right is a big name star at this point. So what are you going to do? Recast, stick with this cast. I think this is a great choice on Paramount's part. I mean, it would have been as I would have loved to seen what Quentin Tarantino was dreaming up, and whether that would have involved William Shatner himself or Chris Pine or both or someone new. I mean, that would have been amazing. But I, obviously loved WandaVision. So, the guy that brought that together, I'm good with him going on, the Enterprise and taking that on. And I'm just really excited to get this cast back. I loved the first one. I thought the second one got bogged down by conness, and it that there was its own fault that they let themselves get taken over by the con of it all. And then the third one I thought was great, but no one saw it because everyone, kind of got a little lackluster after con. So I love the opportunity. These actors are really going to have, I mean, in a sense, it's kind of a soft reboot, even though I don't think it's a soft reboot. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But it is sort of in that sense. So I think it's great. Wendy, what are your thoughts on this announcement and Chris and the cast coming back?
I'm actually really happy about this. I enjoyed the cast, like you said. And again, I am not like, I think a lot of people who watch the show and who watch this Star Trek movie grew up with Star Trek. So they have a certain expectation. So me, as a more casual fan of it, really, really, really liked it. But, kind of what you said, I enjoyed the first one. The con one was just all right. It wasn't bad or anything like that. It was all right. But I do like the chemistry of the cast. I like their relationships. I've enjoyed their arcs. I am sad that we won't be seeing Anton Yelchin return to reprise his role in the movie, unfortunately, due to the tragic accident. But I think there's more stories left to tell because, Star Trek's all about exploration. So I want to see more of it, and I really enjoy Chris Pine in this role. So this is good news to me. And plus, you're having the same person who worked on WandaVision to be working on this film, and just like you said, Jami, that makes me feel very confident about hopefully where they're going to take this movie.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Tarantino aside, because obviously I'd love anything that Tarantino was involved in. I think that Matt was a better choice than Noah. And I love Fargo, but I just think aesthetically, I'd just be worried that his Star Trek would be too weird. You know what I mean? and this Star Trek, I think, is going to be Star Trek weird, like weird enough, but not too far out of, sort of what most casual fans know about Star Trek. Mark, what are your thoughts on the cast returning and Matt Shankman?
I mean, like you guys, I was happy too, but I was honestly surprised that they were bringing them back because the whole Anton Yelchin situation is sad. And how are you going to address that? Because Chekhov is obviously one of, the big members of the Star Trek crew. So how do you make a movie with the cast and not have Chekhov in it? And I'm also surprised that, with everything that, after 3, like you said, it was really good, but I felt like people were conned after watching Star Trek Into Darkness. That, there maybe not be enough interest in a fourth. I mean, technically you can call this like the fourth Star Trek of this universe. But I mean, I'm happy that they're back because, like you guys, I like everyone, all the actors on that cast, and I love the chemistry between them. But it's there has to be a reason why that Matt Shankman's movie was chosen over Noah and Tarantino, and I'm eager to see what kind of movie that we're going to get from him, because if you had a choice between those three and you chose this guy, there has to be a really good reason why yours got chosen over the others. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to see what kind of Star Trek movie Shackman gives us, because I mean, like you guys, I loved WandaVision as well. It's still one of my favorite Disney Plus shows to date. So it's gonna be fun. I'm hoping it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, that's a good point, about the script. Like, there has to be something in there that they chose him over those other two. And there have been rumors that there's an idea that there'll be some sort of time travel nonsense, and we'll get Chris Hemsworth's Captain Kirk's dad with Chris
We
Pine.
could.
Yeah.
I don't know if that sounds like a great idea to me, but I'm willing to, to hold out. And then it will be interesting to see what they do about Chekhov. Obviously, Anton Yelkin, an original member of this cast, but I think if I have my Trekkie-isms correct in my head, I believe Chekhov was not an original cast member of the series. He replaced Sulu when George Takei went to make a John Wayne movie for a few months.
Okay.
And so now also remember, Captain Kirk's not an original member either, because there was Captain Pike in the pilot. But from the first episode that Kirk appeared in, that Shatner appeared in as Kirk, it was Sulu, not Chekhov. And then Chekhov, I think, came in later when George went to make a movie. So, I mean, I don't want to lessen Anton Yelkin by saying this, but I mean, I feel like Chekhov is somewhat not the most important player in the characters, but obviously he was an important player as an actor with this cast. So that will be felt and affected. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, replacing Chekhov it's not like Chekhov's role as a character is all that pivotal to the Enterprise. But again, I'm trying to say that without taking anything away from what the actor did, and obviously did a lot to bring that up. So I think, you've got Sulu there, so you can kind of fill in that role, a little bit, but obviously you'll need something to sort of, tip the hat to their lost cast member. Moving on to just a couple of little quick TV subjects before we are done. Stranger Things season 4 is gearing up for Netflix, and we got to see 4 new posters. You can see 3 of them here, and the 4th one right there. So some interesting posters, kind of giving us an idea of where this season will go, as well as the announcement that there'll be one more season of Stranger Things. As Wendy said earlier off camera, the kids are getting too old. I don't know if that's official or not, but I like
that's
that.
just my theory.
No, I know.
That's my theory.
I like your theory. I like your theory that the kids are getting too old, and that we're gonna do one more. So, I mean, unless it's like Stranger Things in college, we're gonna do one more season. Although that
they could, and I would watch it.
But we're gonna do season 5, and then that's gonna be it for the series. So, Mark, let me start with you. What were your thoughts on these posters? Are you looking forward to season 4, and how do you feel about them ending with season 5?
I was honestly surprised that, because once I read the tagline, every end has a beginning or something along those lines, I was surprised because I'm like, man, are they really ending this? I mean, I'm like Wendy, I wasn't surprised in a sense like, oh, the kids are getting older, but as someone who loves the series, I kind of don't want it to end, but at the same time, you end it on your own terms. Because don't stretch don't stretch things too far out to where the show loses its quality. But it was a bittersweet announcement because we finally have a look inside of season 4. We have a release. We have somewhat a release date because we're getting it sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hoping that they end it on a good note and give us a proper ending to it all.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I have never seen a minute of Stranger Things.
Oh,
I've
it's so
never
good.
watched an episode. I've never seen it.
It's so good.
But what I will say is that I like this trend of series, especially these types of series, ending on their own terms and deciding this is the story we have to tell. This is when we're ending it. And we're not getting into these situations that we had 10 or 15 years ago. Lost is the example I'm going to use. Probably would have been a better series at 4 or 5 seasons than they went for, or even if they just had a better idea of what they were doing and a plan earlier in the stage of things. Listen, we can name a bunch of shows, I'm sure, that probably should have ended earlier than their networks would allow them. So I like that I feel like this is a trend I've been seeing over the last few months, maybe last year or two, where shows are saying we're only going to be 4 seasons or 5, or good Lord, something like WandaVision says we're 1 season. That's it. That's all you're getting. So we told the story we want to tell. So I like this trend and I hope it keeps up with other series. Wendy, what were your thoughts on the posters, the ending, and this upcoming season?
You know what's funny about the marketing for Stranger Things is that, the show ends, and then so naturally, as we do, especially now, everybody kind of moves on from one topic to the next trending topic quite quickly. So, you end it, you talk about it for like a month or so, and then people the trending part of it starts to kind of trickle off. And I'm not saying people stop becoming fans of the shows. I just mean they're not trending on social media or anything like that. But then the second they drop any sort of trailer, poster, hints at anything, the fans come running back oh, what's that you say? Stranger Things. So that was, I feel like me and Mark sort of, when we saw the new posters, we're like, oh, what's happening? And then I got very excited for it because in this season, first of all, it's coming back so much later than I expected. And I know the Duffer Brothers had put out a statement to kind of explain why and how many scripts they have written. I think they said it was over 800 pages of scripts, 9 scripts or something like that. 2 years of filming. On top of that, post-production, plus we are living still with COVID. So, filming has become a little bit more difficult than what we're all used to. But I'm really happy that it's coming back because there's I feel like still a lot to explore. And if you kind of look at these posters for what it's making it seem like is a lot of our main characters aren't technically together for their adventure anymore. And so that makes me wonder, how is this going to work out? Because we got so used to seeing this core group together from season 1. And yes, they do split apart, but Mikey and his family's moved to California. Hopper's off doing his own thing. And we got the Creel House arc. We've got, 11 going back to kind of where she essentially came from. So it makes me very curious to see how the story is going to play out when you have this big group of, characters that mesh really well together. And then you pull them apart and you continue to tell the story, because they're going to have to come together eventually. If you look at, I think there's one final poster. I don't know if we showed it, but it's called, it's the 5th one. It's Apart But Together. And it's they're kind of in the hallway and they're all walking towards the thing. So I think that's really cool. So do they finally meet together in the finale and it's a big finish or what? I don't know, but I am very excited for Stranger Things. And it's been really fun to watch these kids go from itty bitty babies to they're grown. I saw the latest photo of Millie Bobby Brown, who is now 18, I think. And I'm like, oh God, I'm old. I'm old. She's 18.
Yeah.
I'm so old.
Time flies, guys.
Time really flies.
It does. Well,
And
interesting.
they're all super talented, so I really want to see them, pursue other projects and be in other movies and TV shows, as their career blossoms, just kind of like we've seen, I'm forgetting his name right now, Finn Wolfhard in
Right.
Ghostbusters.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got one more thing we're going to hit real quick. We'll just do lightning round on this one. It was a little bit of actually it's two stories in one, but they're both revolving around adaptions of streaming adaptions of popular video games. So we've got BioShock announced at Netflix. This will be a movie on Netflix based on the BioShock video game. And then Amazon Prime Video, not to be outdone by Netflix, is also getting involved with the video game adaptions. This will be a series based on Fallout. I believe directed by, or at least produced by, Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy from Westworld. And Walton Goggins has signed on. We don't know what role yet, but he has signed on to be the lead of the series. So some very exciting video game adaptation news. And we should also note Uncharted was the #1 movie at the box office this week. So yeah, it made like $41 million or something. So who said that video game adaptions are dead? Wendy, what are your thoughts on the BioShock movie and the Fallout series?
I am not surprised that they are trying to adapt more video games onto the big screen or onto the small screens via a series. I feel like it's kind of like currently the trend right now, because I think just recently talked about Halo as well. That is
Halo's
being
coming,
developed into it's coming. It's
Mhm.
not even being developed. It's coming.
yeah.
I want to say it's Peacock, no, Paramount Plus.
The Paramount
Paramount
Plus.
Paramount
Plus.
Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like, aside from maybe Disney Plus, each streaming platform maybe will get their own like video game adaptation solo movie or a series, depending on what. Like, I feel like Sony has a lot to play at here because there's so many popular video games under Sony. But in any case,
Yes, sure.
I am usually cautiously optimistic about a video game movie, because as a fan of video games, I'm like, yes, I can't wait. But then you start thinking like, oh, I hope it include this. I hope they include this. And then when you finally see the product, and they're trying to tell sometimes their own story that doesn't follow the game to a T, you're left feeling a little disappointed, because you wanted that specific storylines to be told on the big screen, right, when it's being adapted. So I usually kind of approach it a little cautiously because of that. And with that said, I tend to think, and I haven't watched Halo yet. None of us have watched Halo yet, or like, The Last of Us. So we won't know until we see those. But I really feel like for a video game adaptation, TV series are the way to go, because you have longer time to flesh it out. And also for like Fallout, I love Walton Goggins, so I will definitely watch for him.
Yeah, absolutely. We love Walton Goggins and anything he does. So yeah, we're there for
Yeah.
that. And also interesting what you said about the TV really being a medium that allows more time. And I think we may see that with Halo. I
Yeah.
think that would have been tough to do as a 2-hour movie. Or yeah, it's a 2-hour movie. So Mark, what are your thoughts on these video game adaptions?
I mean, Wendy hit it on the head. I actually talked about this last night with our fellow HCA member, Aaron Newworth. We were talking about Uncharted last night, and I said on the show with them last night that I feel like video game adaptations are more suited to TV platform than movies, just because video games are long in general. That's why we love them so much, and I think it's pretty hard to adapt something that's cinematic already. Like, if you guys play BioShock is cinematic. That opening scene as you're going down, is amazing. Like The Last of Us, like it's a cinematic game, but just
Right.
I feel like The Last of Us is more suited, better for TV show, because we need to spend time with Joel and Ellie. We need to spend time with, the other characters. But I feel like if we're in a movie, we're constrained to, 2-hour time frame. And like you said, Wendy, like I wish this was in here. I wish that was in here. It's just going to feel like a condensed version of a video game, kind of like how Avatar: The Last Airbender was, because that just basically took the first season of Avatar and condensed it into one whole movie. So I feel like with Halo, with Last of Us, with Fallout, I feel like that's better suited. But that being said, I love BioShock. I've been wanting a BioShock movie since the Gore Verbinski days, where he was attached to do it. So I'm hoping that Netflix does it right, depending on the kind of creative people they put behind it. But I feel like Fallout is definitely going to be really good on in a series series form, because it's a long story. It's very, all the worlds, all the cities that they visit in the games are vast. So you need time to explore, those certain like post-apocalyptic, cities, and and tell a story along the way as well, because Fallout stories are not like something you can condense into like 2 hours. So you gotta stretch it out into something that's longer. So looking forward to both, because I'm a big fan of both series.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they come together, and we'll keep our eye on that in the weeks and months, and hopefully not too long, but years to come as these shows develop. But that is all the time we have today for the Pop Council podcast. I want to thank our audience. I want to thank you all for tuning in, and remind you that we are just one of the shows on the Hollywood Critics Association's YouTube channel. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and tune in to Pop Council every Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And also want to remind you, we have so many after shows and other great shows on this YouTube channel on HCA. Too many to mention, too numerous to tell you all the different time slots, but we want to make sure that you are aware of them. Check them out. Check out all the shows on HCA. And of course, we want to thank our special guest, Mark. Mark, thanks so much for joining us. Tell everyone where they can check out your work and see you.
You can find my work and all my reviews at Nerd Reactor, and you can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at I almost had it.
There it is.
Pac-Man NR7.
Awesome. And it wouldn't be Pop Council if Wendy Lee Szany wasn't here. Wendy, woohoo!
Yay!
Tell everyone where they can check you out.
Thanks, Jami and Mark. You can find me on all the socials at just my name, Wendy Lee Szany, no spaces in between, obviously. You can find me on YouTube under the Movie Couple channel, where we talk about movies, TV shows, we do reactions. We actually just wrapped our reaction for The Legend of Vox Machina. So if you haven't been watching that series, I would highly recommend. It's excellent if you're into animated, if you're looking for something in the fantasy realm. And then, that is it. You can find me here every Monday talking all the geeky stuff with Jami.
That's right, every Monday. And I'm Jami Philbrick. You can check out some of my work on moviephone.com, and also check me out on Instagram and Twitter at Philbrock. And we will see you all next week right back here on the Pop Council podcast. Thanks for watching.
Bye, everyone.